Sick. All right, we're recording, man. Thanks for joining us on this podcast. I got Gardner here today because we were working on the Art of Mr. Bill season 5, doing some editing and stuff. So he's here today with me because we were doing editing. So I thought he could join the podcast too, if you're okay with that.
Oh yeah, totally. I'm surprised he's not over taking out a wall for you or something.
Yeah, we already did all that, and all the walls are gone. So
now you just have him around for fun. Gross.
Yeah. Yeah, man. So thanks for coming on. And how are you? How you doing?
Oh, all right. Just busy.
Oh, cool. What are you doing?
Mostly just wrapping up before vacation at the moment. I've got 3 videos I've been filming over the last week, which has been intense because normally I only try to do one video at a time, sort of sequentially, because I work in batches of 3s for videos, but I've been basically filming and editing 3 videos side by side for the last couple days, and then I've got client projects like sound design and scoring things and whatever that need done. So it's trying to cram 2 weeks worth of work into the last 7 days.
It's funny because I just watched your video about books that people should read if they're creatives, and one of them was called Essentialism, which I guess is just about taking on extremely essential work and getting rid of all the shitty stuff. But now you're doing the opposite thing.
Well, I don't know. I mean, I'm doing the stuff I feel is essential, but the problem is I feel like everything is really fun and interesting. So,
right.
And then it's a matter of the different aspects of it as well, where it's I have my YouTube projects and I'm only doing the ones that I really, really want to do. And then I'm doing my sound design work and I'm only doing the ones I really, really want to do. And then I'm making music and, all that stuff. So you pile what essentially amounts to 3 different jobs together, then it turns out it's just a lot of work all the time.
Yeah, I kind of have the same thing, especially with touring, where I'm I don't really want to do too many shows this year because I want to work on a new album or something like that. And then I get some offers from my agents and I'm like, well, that sounds fun. And then I end up being on the road traveling all the time. And
yeah, and that's the thing is I get these ideas, I nail down my schedule and I'm like, cool, I'm good at that. Everything's good. I'm excited. This is going to be awesome. And then, you get halfway through one thing and you're like, oh, you get a cool idea for a song, or, I'm like, oh, I just bought this, weird guitar thing. I should turn that into a sample library. And then, some new thing comes out, or I get some idea and I pitch it to someone and they're like, yeah, let's do it. So then next thing you know, it's cool, I'm booked for the next 6 months solid. Hopefully absolutely nothing goes wrong during that time.
Yeah, true. How was NAMM?
Disappointing. I don't know. I don't know where I fall with NAMM anymore. I'm kind of over it. I enjoy the people at NAMM. I enjoy having conversations, but I fail to see the relevance of NAMM anymore.
I mean, I've only been once, but I figured it was just a giant pissing contest between all the companies basically, and I love that. I was like, yeah, fuck yeah, if a company who builds speakers go there and they're like, yeah, you built that speaker, well look at this fucking thing we built, and they bring in an entire shipping container just full of speakers,
and there's these huge displays. And that was my first NAMM was in 2020, I want to say, or 2019. And I guess that was the last very big NAMM. So my first experience, and I think I'm correct in saying it was one of the biggest NAMM conventions they had, at least recently. So that was my first NAMM, was just huge booths, and there's cool, shirts and hoodies and water bottles and all sorts of cool goodies you can get at the booths. And yeah, it was just kind of out big dicking each other with oh, the Roland booth is 4 floors of things, and then the Yamaha booth is we have a whole floor of the convention center with just amazing, gajillion-dollar grand pianos and stuff. But the last couple years, well, I guess one was gone due to COVID, whatever that was, 2021, I think. But yeah, the last couple ones have just been really underwhelming, and I think it's because there's no announcements really anymore. Everything seems to get announced at Super Booth, but even then, it just doesn't make sense to announce things a lot of the times at these trade shows, when it's you could just put out a press release online and it's going to get picked up by the same news cycle anyway. And then on the other side, from the YouTube perspective, I'm not going to film a NAMM video. There's nothing to talk about. It's too loud. The lighting sucks. You can't demo anything, and then by the time your channel grows to a certain point, it's like I can't have 5 minutes to myself at NAMM to play with something. I got to shake hands. Hi, how are you? Hi, how are you? Hi, how are you? So that sucks. So on like the media side, I don't see the point in it. And then from the company side, it's like you're going to pay godly amounts of money for this booth for, let's say, a couple hundred people to walk up to it, and out of them, a couple dozen of them actually know your product, but the majority just kind of walk up going, oh, what do you do? Is it, like you're a plug-in company, let's say, and you have a MIDI controller, right? They're like, do you guys make that piano thing? And you're like, no, we make software. Oh, okay, thanks. And then they leave. And it's like, I can't imagine for the tens of thousands of dollars it costs to have a booth at NAMM that's worth it.
Well, I don't think the value is in selling someone who doesn't already know your stuff and your MIDI controller. I think the value in it for companies is the networking, right? So it's like they'll go and like buy a booth there, fly their whole company there. Some of it's subsidized by promotion and stuff like that. Right. But I think for the most part, it's so, Softtube can go there and set up and like meet everyone who works at Native Instruments or whatever and maybe get a collab going or something.
Yeah, it seems like the B2B front of it has been better the last couple of years. And I think arguably it's been because it's been smaller. Because this year that was kind of half my thing, was like, talking to other companies, and then, they know I work with this other company, so then I would intro them of like, oh yeah, I was just talking to so-and-so from whatever, I'll bring him over, and then we talk, and then, oh yeah, I just met her, she's great, let's go over to her booth. So I guess there's value in that, but it's also just like, can't this be done over email?
It kind of can, but meeting in person is like definitely a little more valuable. I think it is cool that everyone who's basically a gear creator and everyone who's like into gear and stuff all decide that like one time a year we're all going to go to this thing. I didn't go this year, but yeah, I think it's cool. Like the first year I went, I had no idea what it was, and I just walked into this random place and was like, what the hell is this? There's so much shit. Like someone
it's
who
huge. It
was insane. And from that I met Andrew Huang, Adam Neely, Richard Devine, like tons of people that
and that's the fun part, is you're walking around and you're like sipping your $43 NAMM beer, and then you're like, holy shit, was that Stevie Wonder?
Yeah, exactly. It's like you'll just see like the most crazy, like Chris Lord Alge was at one of the places, like in the Waves
like
booth.
People like that are just walking around and you're like, oh, sup dog, how's it going?
Yeah, that shit is kind of sick. Like the Slate Digital guys just like hanging around and shit. Yeah, it's pretty cool. I liked it, and the after parties are fun too. Like you'll get in. I got invited to like a bunch of random like little hotel room after parties and shit for like random smaller companies, and then I got invited to like a bigger after party where Native Instruments had just like basically bought out the entire hotel bar and was just like running a little thing.
I think I'm still residually hungover from the Splice party last year. That was but that's like the fun stuff, is like meeting the companies and the people and things like that, and that's really, really fun. But just it's gotten to a point where it's like it's all the way in Anaheim, and that's really far, and I don't know.
Why can't they just put NAMM at my house, man? Come on.
Right. Yeah. Well, and it's like, can it just be like Vegas or somewhere cheaper too? Because then it's like, if I go to the Anaheim NAMM, it's like everything is really expensive, and it's like I would think hosting it in Chicago for a year or something like that's just as much of a major airport or something, but orders of magnitude cheaper, I would feel like. But I don't know. That's why I don't run NAMM.
Speaking of Splice, who have been very good to me, and I assume you too. I wonder what's going to happen with them with this AI overtake, because I feel like at this point, if you know how to use AI, which in Splice, like in the defense of it's pretty hard to use. It's not like super user friendly.
No, not yet. I've seen a couple tools that have gotten pretty good that are still like very, very alpha beta-y, but
yeah, like Dance Diffusion was a little bit of a pain in the ass to set up. I had luckily a friend of mine was staying here who's an incredibly good programmer who's been working at Google for like 20 years. So he was able to help me set it up in a way where I just can run a script off my desktop and it like does everything, like installs all the dependencies and everything. And then I can just like feed it a sample and be like, give me like 1 billion iterations of that sample, and it can just keep spitting out iterations of it. Or I can give it a folder of samples and be like, make me a bunch of stuff, or make a model that makes stuff like this, like the average of this data set. And so now I've got like a model that can do like acapellas. I've got a model that can do like ad libs, like little like that shit.
It's gotten really powerful very, very quickly.
Right. So how do you think that's going to affect something like Splice?
I I suppose I have to choose some of my words carefully here. I have seen in-house tools from a couple different companies, and I think the future of it looks something. There's one company in particular who's doing something kind of interesting with it, where they have their existing sample set, of like all the stuff on their sample service, and they're working on these tools that can basically kind of do what you said, where I could pick, let's say, 20 different guitar loops, and I could feed it this and say, hey, I want a guitar loop that sounds something like these, and it's in the key of G minor at about 120 BPM, and it can more or less rough that out. But where it got really interesting and what they're building out of it is feeding it different things of like a drum loop, a guitar loop, and let's say like a vocal chop thing, right? And you've got these 3 loops that work together. And they're already, human-made loops, let's call them. So you would feed it this and say, I need a bass line. And it would look at these things and figure out like the melodic movement and generate a bass line. And you could key it as like acoustic bass or, 303 acid bass. And that was really cool. And I think that that's going to be the most efficient and useful way to kind of bring that technology forward, because I think it rounds out the service nicely and it builds off your existing catalog where, like, let's say you have I don't know, who's that company, like Loop Masters, whatever lounge lo-fi guitar pack or something, where it's like, it's one of those packs of 100 different lo-fi guitar loops. It's cool to think that there could be a way for these services to then kind of expand their database and train it on their own stuff. And I think that's what it's going to look like, but I think it's going to get troublesome in that, like, where does that line get drawn on copyright and sourcing and things like that? And I've done a couple of videos on all this because the way we handle copyright in music is really stupid. And I think that's going to start really blurring the lines a lot of, like, do we have to cite the sources of these things or whatever? But I don't know. I don't think the companies are doing something dumb by doing this. I think they're just taking advantage of the technology, and, like, from a capitalist standpoint, it makes sense to generate a bunch of new samples effectively for free, at the cost of, like, running a server somewhere that generates drum loops all day somewhere in the back of a sad, lonely warehouse. But yeah, I don't know. I'm curious to see how it's going to be applied, because I envision a future of, like, AI in music where someone like myself, when I was some 13-year-old dipshit in the middle of nowhere in some corn-fed town in fuck all Illinois, I know how to play guitar, but, like, I can't play drums for shit. Wouldn't it be cool if I could play my guitar line and say, hey, can you give me a bass loop and a drum loop that works with this? And I could create, some cool heavy metal music. Or, I'm someone who's, like, a good vocalist and I can't play keys for shit, of, like, hey, I wrote this really good vocal melody. What's a piano line that goes with that? And I think that that's where that's going to come in with those types of services, Splice or whoever, utilizing AI to generate new sounds to make that more useful. I don't know. I don't think it's a bad thing.
I definitely don't think AI is a bad thing. I agree that it's going to be used as like a tool that people who it's going to just up accessibility, right? Like music production is already incredibly accessible as is,
and I think that's better. Like, it's more people making music, and that's awesome. And I think the ultimate thing, and that's something I've been working on a video on for months now, is accessibility in music, specifically from the standpoint of, like, people with, like, physical or other disabilities, where, like, if you lost the use of your arm and you're a guitar player, oh shit, I can't make music anymore. Like, that really sucks. And, imagine if you never had the ability to, play any because, like, most instruments are designed for people with the use of everything, right? Like the piano was not designed to be played without use of your hands and, fine motor skills. So I think that AI and stuff like that, it opens it up. Like, more people can express themselves, and that's awesome. And people are going to use it and abuse it and make crappy music with it. And then people like, Beato are going to sit there and boomerize on it on YouTube, but whatever. Like, people are having fun. And that's cool. Like, that would have saved me so much time as a kid to not have to go learn how to record shit and play different instruments and figure all this out. If I could have just been like, I want to write a song today. All right, cool. Now I'm going to go play Call of Duty with my friends.
I think people are going to license their models.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
So, like, it's not too much different from, like, that Scarby bass sample library that everybody was using for bass and contact. So it's like if you've got a really sick model that you've trained on a whole bunch of like loops of you playing bass, I could sell the GARDNSOUND bass model, and people could have that on their track. And maybe
that's actually something I'm working on right now with a company. Is I'm doing like a Venus theory model.
Well, there you
and
go.
I think that's super, super cool because it's like, from someone who's a fan of my music's perspective, like, hey, cool, I can get, sounds like I would hear in this song. But then on my perspective, it's like, well, shit, now I don't have to sit here, running kick drums through my ridiculous kick drum maker chain to make cool kick drums. I can literally just say, hey, here's 1,000 kick drums I made. Can you just give me more of those, please?
Yeah, totally. Yeah, that's basically what I did with like because I have a pretty organized sample library, and I just have it all organized by shit that I like. So I have all my favorite kicks in one folder, all my favorite snares in another folder, all my favorite claps in another folder. So I just train models on all of them. And now when I want some sample, I quite often will just go to one of those models I train and be like, make me some shit. And then a couple of minutes later, I'll just like have 50 clips or whatever, and I can just go through them quickly and be like, all right, that one's good, and then pick it, and I know that it's never been used in a track before.
Right. And that's the cool thing is like, where it's like, hey, I have these sounds I like, but they're not quite right, and that's the process, right? We sit there with our fucking drum kits open and we click through. All right, I need a better kick drum, and then we sit there going dun, 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 for an hour going through our folder of 8 billion fucking kick drums. But like with AI tools, that's so cool that you could just quickly iterate on it and get something like really fresh and different, or slightly different, where you're like, I like this, but it's not bright enough. Imagine like that kind of that GPT approach of like, make this kick drum hard as fuck, boy. And it just does some stuff and gives you a harder kick drum, or like, make this more mellow. And it's like, okay.
Yeah, I also think another good use for AI is going to be upsampling audio, or anything really for that matter. Where you can just say train a model on nothing but side information or nothing but high frequency information, and then give it other samples and be like, remake this sample, but it will just remake the highs or just remake the sides, and then put them back together or something like that. So you've got now generated side information rather than like Haas effect shit or something like that.
Yeah, and that could be super useful for like stem separation, where like there's so many plugins and so many of those stupid AI services that have emailed me about like, we have this game-changing da-da-da-da-da-da. And yeah, like, what if you could just put a bandpass filter on a mix to get like the guitar line out, and then you're just, and it sounds really bandpassed and crappy, and you feed that into something that just like generates the missing information and makes it sound like the stem. Or you could alter it, take this and make it cleaner, make this more chill. Like,
well, we already have stem separation from FFT stuff, so I think like, if anything, it would just like go through an extra filter, right? So it'd be like original source content, go through FFT, then remake the layers.
Yeah, and like,
or upsample them, because a lot of the FFT separation currently sounds like very aliased and spectral and stuff like that. So
that would be cool if it would do that, where you could feed something into it and it would kind of fix all the grossness of it, or where it could be like Mid-Journey or something, where like you do that and it upsamples it or generates like stereo information from like a mono source or whatever, and then you're like, create 10 variations on that. And then it's like, cool, now I have a different hook line for my chorus, or wow, okay, that one's going to be like perfect for the intro, and you could say how different, I want this to be 50% different, or I want this to be 90% different. Give me something that's like a hard left turn melodically. And that gives me, as like a composer or something, a great idea to, add a turnaround to this piece when I've been stuck on it for 4 days and the client needs it by tonight.
Yeah, idea generation, I think, is another cool aspect of it. I also have a model that I train on my discography, and it will just spit out like tiny little loops that are like 5 seconds long, and one of them usually will generate me an idea. One of the things that a lot of people I've been hearing on generally like Twitter or even on other podcasts or real life, that they have this fear that but if AI can write music, then like, what's the point of me making music anymore? But to that, my thought is like, how many times in my life have I actually even heard a track that I wouldn't do anything to? Like, how many times have I actually heard a track where I'm like, that's perfect, I wouldn't change a thing?
Right.
Like maybe once ever or something. Like, I can't even remember a song like that, to be honest. I can't even give you an example of one where I'd be like, I wouldn't change a thing about that song. And that to me just says like no matter what AI generates, it's going to be no different because it's only going to be trained on everything humans have ever done, which I already think is imperfect and would change anyways.
Right. Yeah.
And this includes my past work, like works that I've made on a certain day where I'm like, that's perfect, that's done, I'm releasing it. You could show it to me today and I wouldn't think the same thing about it. I would think like, oh, actually I could have changed this and that and this. So I think, yeah, it's always just going to be something to generate fodder for you to work from to get closer to your ideals on the day.
Right. And there's, like I said, there's going to be people that abuse that where they just like generate 1,000 songs and upload them to fucking SoundCloud or whatever. And that's fine. You know, other people are going to use it as like an inspiration tool where it's going to give you, yeah, a little spit out of like, oh yeah, I could make that work. I could change this and do this and cool. And other people are just going to not touch it whatsoever. And life's going to keep on spinning because, you know, if making music doesn't make you happy and you feel like the AI is going to defeat the point of you making music because you're in this for like the accolades and recognition, then like go start gardening or something. Like,
I have a question for you.
Sure.
If somebody abuses AI and they make 1,000 AI songs a day and they upload them all to SoundCloud and they get massive from it because so many people get vast enjoyment from these uploads and they like you listen to them and they get like human actual emotion like happiness or joy or excitement or any of the other emotions that you experience when you listen to music that you like. If so many people get that from AI uploaded music from an artist and then they get big because of that, is there anything wrong with that?
I mean, I don't really think so. It's like looking at, you know, Jackson Pollock and being like, well, I could do that. And that's the thing is you fucking didn't.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, and it like the I don't know, it just comes down to like what do you value about music? Do you value the process of creating? Do you value the way the audience interacts? Do you value the way it makes you famous and important and better than everyone else? Do you value the way that it brings fulfillment to your own life? Does having AI generated music totally destroy your feelings and validity? Then like that, I think that's not an AI problem, that's a you problem.
Right, and this is a good segue into the Notlo thing probably, right? Because she made a track, a bunch of people got enjoyment from the track,
right,
et cetera, and then a bunch of people got pissed off because she used
a bunch of people
some samples.
Who produce got pissed off.
Right.
And that's the thing is, are you producing for other producers or are you producing for the audience? And
well,
I
actually think it was more non-producers that got pissed off, and that's why this issue existed in the first place, because they just don't understand how music is made anyway.
I
And
think that
like,
was part of it too. On a lot of the Reddit threads I read when I was researching for that whole video was, it was people like, if I would have known that so-and-so, because, other people brought up other artists who use loops and whatever, and it was like, if I would have known, I would have never bought their
It's like none of these people had ever heard of Daft Punk in their life.
Right.
It's like these dudes literally, if you go to like samples that they used and listen to their track versus the original, it's like basically no different. They added like a disco drums to it, and people are like, yeah, but that was used in like a genius way, man. Don't even talk shit on Daft Punk.
That was Daft Punk. That wasn't
exactly.
this rando I've never heard of, and it's the same way of like, yeah, man, but the Beatles did minor 7 chords differently. It just just doesn't hit the same. Yeah, I don't know. The whole Notlo thing was just so funny and frustrating because it was just, it's like, when people find out about backlines at like, the big venues here in Nashville where it's like there's an auto-tune rack in the back that makes the vocalist stay on key, and it's like this is the music industry. If you pay whatever that Taylor Swift concert is where the tickets are $1 gajillion, if you paid $1,000 to go see Taylor Swift, and like she's a great vocalist, but let's just say Taylor Swift sucks live, and she's all out of key and whatever, you as the person going to that concert are gonna be like, this was a ripoff. It's an insurance policy, and I think like it's not that loops are an insurance policy against like a lack of talent, but it's just I feel like people don't like to have the inner workings of music production and the music industry demystified. Where like when you pull back that curtain, it's kind of uncomfortable to realize a lot of the truths of like, yeah, everything's auto-tuned and time-aligned to fuck. Like, when it comes to modern concert productions, it's not a concert, it's a theater show.
Yeah, it's like professional wrestling.
Right. Yeah, and it's like, well, but that's the silent majority of consumers. Like that, if I'm going to WWE, I want to watch people get thrown on tables and drink beer and eat hot wings and get excited when Joe Rogan, I don't know, some guy comes out with like veins popping out of his forehead yelling about his grandma's truck or whatever they talk about in wrestling. Like that's why I'm there. And I think It's not any less valid that it's all staged, and I don't think Notlo like staged anything. They just did the thing. You know, they made music with loops. God forbid.
So I actually downloaded the pack that she used, and I also downloaded the project file that people were saying that she used. And the project file for that pack was not that song.
It was completely different.
Yeah, it was a different.
Right. Yeah,
it's a totally different song. And I looked through the loops, and some of the loops that were in the track that she made were the same, but the project file was totally different. However, the SoundCloud upload for the project. For that pack is different as well, which I don't really even fucking understand, like where that project file comes from. I tried to even find it and I couldn't even find it. So
my understanding was just someone got really emotional and reactive and posted on Reddit, and then it took off. And like, I understand the arguments of where they're coming from, of like, you know, I feel like, yeah, construction kit music and stuff like that, it does represent sort of an ethical problem as a consumer, maybe, but it's like, the majority of people don't care, and that's kind of the thing I think I mentioned in my video of like, you know, whenever I'm listening to music or something, I'll sit there and huff and guff about all sorts of dumb shit, but then, you know, I'll mention it to my wife from like, you know, because she listens to like a lot of the top 40 stuff and things like that, and she'll always put on a Spotify playlist in the car. Whenever we get in the car to go anywhere, she puts on all the new music she's found lately. And it's funny because like it makes me kind of tilt shift into like a different mode, but I'm always bitching and griping about like, oh, like they could have done a better, you know, chord there, like they could have done some more interesting harmony there. My wife doesn't give a fuck.
You go all Rick Beato on it.
Oh yeah, I get real boomery sometimes with a lot of that stuff of just
yeah.
But then it's funny because I'll come home and show her, I'm like, you know, oh, but like imagine if it went like this. And that's the part of creating music. It's all subjective. None of it only has the value and, you know, grandeur of whatever you assign to it. None of it fundamentally means anything. There is no right way to express yourself, and you know, if AI does it or loops do it, then whatever. You know, if, like I said, it's just, I guess it's just comes down to that, like what provides the fulfillment value for you with music, either as an artist or as a consumer.
Yeah, exactly. I agree with that. I think if people are getting value from making music with AI, and then people are also getting value from listening to that music, I don't see anything wrong with a more expedited process of that.
And it's like, wouldn't that be cool if you're just like in a mood and you're like, can you write me a happy song to go clean the garden to? And you have like fun listening to it, and great. And then you upload it and it goes super viral on TikTok, and yay. You know, it just, I don't know where that ends, and why does everything have to become this product with music, and why do we always judge it on the merit of that? Because it's like a generative modular patch. You know, it's like the philosophy of impermanence. You know, it only exists in that moment until I turn this off or unplug it, and it never exists again. And same thing, like is that any less valid than when I go strum my guitar for 20 minutes while my dog's taking a fat shit in the yard, and I don't record it, I don't save it, I don't share that with anybody? That musical moment is one and done, the end. You know.
I think there's another part to that conversation where it's like, why? So like where the, to a degree, and I wrote a piece about this, about the Notlo thing, and from my perspective, and what I was able to relate to it on was, I used to have that same mentality where it was like, if there isn't enough effort put into a thing, like if I see somebody getting clout or getting attention or getting the thing I want, which is what I used to want. I used to want those things.
Right.
You know, and they're doing it by putting forth less effort than my perceived effort, then that's not fair. So like, it's the same reason that there's a certain sect of people who don't think that student loans should be forgiven because they didn't get theirs forgiven, right? So like,
right,
they're like, oh, it's not fair. It's not fair. So like that fairness conversation, like that for me, like that rings home where I'm like, man, I feel really silly now that I'm, 34, and I'm looking back on myself like as I used to be, and thinking about some arguments that I used to have where it was like, oh, well, that person, this is, going back to another conversation where it was like, are DJs musicians? That used to be a controversy, right?
Oh yeah, I was the same way. I thought all electronic
guitars.
music was junk. Yeah,
they don't know how to play the upright bass. They're not fucking real musicians.
I was the same way. That was the background I came from. Was like, real music is made by people on a record in a studio. And
yeah. And carpenters used to say, "Oh, if you use power tools, you're not a real carpenter."
Exactly. Yeah, and it's the same. It's the same stupid thing. And then it's like it comes down to like, yeah, the fairness thing is always a funny one, because it's like I can't understand this idea that you're entitled to success or entitled to other people's time with whatever it is you make. And that's something I think that video maybe comes out tomorrow, but I've been talking about kind of the idea of like this impact and this legacy and this fetishism that we have for that idea. But it's like, as someone who works super hard to write music and like not use loops and whatever, are you any more of a musician than like my 5-year-old nephew when he comes and bangs on the pots and pans in my kitchen? Like, is Sting any more of a musician than that? I don't know.
I think part of this thought comes from the fact that like human time is like basically the only non-renewable resource, right? And therefore, if you put more effort into something, that probably means you spent more time on it, and therefore it has some more like inherent value because it used up some more of this non-renewable resource or whatever, and specifically more value to you because it was your non-renewable resource that you used on it.
Well, that's
but in the
what
end,
is that called in psychology, where like if we're going to give something away to like Goodwill or whatever, we value it higher than what we pay for it if we saw it there. Like if you're giving away your old tea mug or whatever, you're going to say, oh, this is, it's a yard sale, right? It's $3 at my yard sale, but I go to someone else's yard sale, and if that mug costs more than 25 cents, I don't need it that bad. It's stupid, right? It's the value we place on it based on our own input, and that's kind of something I was talking about at some point, was just the idea that like you don't decide your magnum opus or like the value of your work, the people do, and even then it's completely subjective. I think any artist will tell you that, like, you put out music and you're like, I fucking hated that song and everybody loved it, or like, this one song in this album I kind of threw on there, people really liked that one, I got a lot of great feedback on that one, or and that was something I was reading about the other day. There was the South Park, the creators of South Park, talking about throwaway ideas and whatever, and it was the World of Warcraft episode, if you remember that one, if you watched South Park. Make Love Not Warcraft, and he was talking about how like this was the worst episode and we were going to pull it and didn't want to put it out, and like that's one of their most well-known episodes.
It's the only one my wife has ever seen.
Right. Yeah, it's a classic episode, and it's again, it's just, I don't know, the value is never absolute.
How do you kill that which has no life?
From 1,000 Truths.
For me, that is Pleasure Seeker. I was like not going to put that track out really. I was just going to use it as the ending track to my podcast. And then so many people started asking about it that I was like, oh, fuck it, I'll put it out on Phantasmagoria. Now it's got almost 2 million plays, like way more than anything else I've got plays on.
And that's the thing,
it's
like,
weird. And I made that in like 30 minutes. I made that basically like an hour or something.
You had a ton of fun writing that song, and that song provided no less value to your life than your favorite song you've ever written. It was just the experience of the work.
Right, exactly. But for some reason,
added validity to the existence of the thing.
Right, but now it has more like a bunch more value to it than, for instance, I've spent like, weeks and weeks on a certain piece, put that out and it gets like 30,000 plays and doesn't move my career at all. I make basically no money from it. Then I spend like 40 minutes or whatever on a tune, put it out, it gets millions of plays. I make tons of money from it and my career grows a shitload from it. It's like, what?
But in the act of doing, though, that's not the thing you're thinking of.
Right, exactly. Yeah, I'm just thinking like I'm making a tune, and that's all I'm thinking when I'm making a tune. And that's all that you
can assign to the creative process, in any facet of whatever you're doing. If you're a painter or writer or musician or whatever, it's the act of doing that you have to just be so obsessed with.
I sometimes wonder if you just get out of the way of yourself when you're creating more, like basically just treating everything as like demos and basically working sort of like an amateur, which is I think something that one of those books was talking about. If that generally, not all the time, but in general, like on an average, will produce work that more people will maybe resonate with than if you like.
Well, it's because they're not afraid to release stuff. Like if you're an amateur, you're just like, I put out a song, all right, it goes on SoundCloud, all right, on to the next one. I think we all empathize with those days. Even if like you weren't part of the SoundCloud era in like the heyday, but yeah, when you start out making music, you write a song with your friends, or you make a cool song and beat in FL or whatever, and you upload it and it's done. And that dynamic changes so much when you're like, okay, I'm gonna be a famous rock star, or what, I'm gonna be a DJ or whatever, and it's like now you're gonna get in the way of like censoring that process and the idea, and trying to read the tea leaves of like what's gonna make this a hit and whatever. And I think to some degree that can work, but fundamentally it has to remain an amateur process of just creating and releasing without any sort of fear whatsoever of just, here is the thing. Like Bjork is the example I use all the time. I do not fucking understand Bjork one bit, and I love it. It's, the videos are so weird, the music is way the fuck out there. It's awesome. And I think it's just because like Bjork in the truest sense is like an artist. And that's, I think, what we all have to aspire to some degree, is like just to not give a fuck and just put stuff out.
I think part of this, at least for me, comes from this like one-upsmanship kind of mentality where I'm like, well, I put that out, that was this good, well, my next thing's got to be better than that.
Yeah.
So then I put more effort into it, make sure the new tracks that I'm putting out are mixed better, the musically they're like more coherent, like all that kind of stuff. Make sure the sound design is more impressive, all that sort of shit. And I think it's probably got like a pretty hard ceiling to it, and at some point you probably have to accept that and just be like, all right, this is the best I can do, and put it out and hope people like it.
Well, like, from like the philosophical standpoint, looking at like Kant and the aesthetic theories of music and whatever, like that all is subjective. So yeah, there absolutely is a hard ceiling to it, but it's your ceiling, and that is always a moving goalpost, because that's insanely relative to every single person that consumes something. I showed my wife Death Grips the other day, and she's like, what the fuck is this? And I was like, are you kidding me? I love Death Grips. Like, you go listen to Hannah Montana, dumbass. But
I feel like that goalpost also moves with the times, right? It's like what was seen as like perfect, like the ideal thing for me in 2014 is very different than what I see it is now.
What's the phrase? It's when something is trendy, it's one step away from cliche, and that's true of your own work too. Where like you have your little eras of like, I'm doing this and I love to do this and I like using these samples, and then you listen back and you just cringe at like, God, okay, it was look at that, it was kick 17 again. Way to be, fucking Mozart. There's the chop snare. Oh boy.
Fair. So you said earlier you were doing some projects for like clients and stuff. What generally does your client work look like? Like what kind of stuff do you usually do?
A lot of sound design, presets and things like that. I used to do a lot more samples and loop kits and things like that. I've gotten more away from that just because the pay is so garbage anymore, and like I don't see that being a career anymore, especially like all the AI tools that have come out, or the ones that I've seen that are in the works. It's like,
wait, so when you make a sample pack of loops, you don't take points on that, you just do a flat fee?
It kind of depends on the project. In some cases, back and I kind of quit doing those like a couple of years ago. So anytime I do packs
taking
anymore,
a flat fee for that kind of stuff seems pretty whack. I think like the move for samples is putting your own name on it and putting it out as samples where you get sales per sample.
Well, and that's the thing now, is like I put it out on my, for my patrons or things like that. And I don't think I'll ever go back to making, loop packs that go on Splice or something. Because when I did do that, it was a great way to kind of cut your teeth and learn the ins and outs of like how to make a sample pack and kind of streamline my workflow. But then it became like commissioned work. I've worked with a couple like trailer production places and whatever for, like movie trailer sound effects and shit like that. So that's sometimes done as like a flat fee, or sometimes it's done kind of like music licensing, where like if the sounds get used, then I get, some kind of residual on that. It kind of just depends on the project. So I do that kind of stuff. I work a lot on preset design for like hardware and software. Like when there's a new instrument coming out, I'll work on presets for it. Or if there's like a new plugin, I'll do presets for that. Or I might do like consulting on that, where, some company's working on a thing. So I'll be kind of like a super beta tester and, run it through a bunch of stuff and see what it does, provide some feedback on like the UI and UX and, some sounds and things like that. And then I work doing sample libraries, obviously, like contact instrument type stuff, and then I do my own decent sampler libraries now, which has been awesome. I love doing those things, but similar stuff where like, making multi-sample instruments and
whatnot. AI would be crazy for making multi-sample instruments.
That would save so much time. I would be so happy.
If you need to make like a shit ton of like slightly different one-shots, perfect for that.
I think that's where stuff like that Sound Paint plugin do some particularly clever things, where it's like the interpolation between the different velocity layers, where it can give you, 127 velocity layers generated from, 4 velocity layers. And that's a really great idea. And I think that's going to be something that's pretty cool. But yeah, I enjoy doing that stuff. And then I do a lot of demo music for things, like when there's like videos of a new plugin that come out, someone's got to write the music that goes in the trailer, shit like that.
Right.
Demo tracks for products, where like, when you go to the web page and there's like 10 demo tracks or whatever, I do that kind of stuff. And then, writing music for apps and things, and starting to kind of want to get more back into library music, but I don't know that that's really worth it anymore.
Yeah, AI is going to take over that as well, I think.
Yeah.
If people don't like care who made it or how much effort's in it or like whatever, they don't really give a shit about like whether or not it's like 10% or 20% better because a human didn't add all the noising, blurry, Gaussian shit that AI adds, then I think people are going to use that a lot.
That's kind of the thing I've been getting more into, is like just the commissioned work side, where I get more of the creative freedom and not so much the like, we need sad piano chords with reverb on it. Because that, that stuff just makes me want to beat my fucking face into the wall. So that's been nice to get work with like some apps and things like that. And doing things like that is really fun too, where, sometimes it's like the UI and UX sound design of like little clicks, and what does the menu sound like? And when you win, what does it do? And, things like that are really fun. So I enjoy doing a lot of that. And I kind of want to get more into that. But, the composing stuff is just so insanely gatekeepy and competitive, and also just, I don't see that being a job for a long time.
Right.
So,
would you say most of your income then at this point comes from Patreon?
Probably a pretty, and this is more by design, but it's probably a pretty even split between sound design stuff, YouTube, and then Patreon, but less and less YouTube now, because I'm just kind of way fucking done with sponsors and that kind of stuff. Because I just kind of quit doing GearTube because I was sick of it. So, anymore it's probably... The big chunk is probably split, between like sound design and Patreon stuff, and that's just by design, because every month these things go up and down, and YouTube as well. Obviously, is like every month on YouTube the paycheck is just surprise.
So like music streams for you are not like really a considerable split.
Not really, because I don't really release music for streaming. Like there's not a lot of Spotify money to be earned on 30-second bumper music.
Right. For that 30-second bumper music, do you register it with a PRO? And
no, I need to sign up for like ASCAP or something at some point, but I'm just fucking lazy.
Yeah, dude. So like, I don't know like what projects you've done and what films you've been in and stuff, but I did this Nicolas Cage movie a while ago.
Oh yeah, Mom and Dad.
Yeah, and I registered all of those tracks with a PRO.
That was the only reason I watched that movie. I will have you know.
Awesome. Yeah, I registered all those tracks with a PRO, which might have been the smartest thing I've ever done. Because like some months, my PRO paycheck will be like $30, which is just sort of what it normally is from like Spotify streams and all that kind of like people playing it in clubs and filling out LPRs and shit. Sometimes it'll be like that, but then all of a sudden, like they will have just released it in a theater in like Japan or something like that, and I'll look in the thing every month and be like, wait, what the fuck is like $7,000 this month? What happened? And then I'll look into it, and it's like it just started showing in a new country or something. I need to get more
into that, but I haven't done any like major projects, and I don't know. That's also sort of by design because I really like working with the really small indie people, just to be like, let's just make something cool. And you know, I'm happy to be like, all right, it's gonna be, let's do, it'll be $5,000 just to do all the music and sounds, and I get kind of the blank license of like go nuts. So
yeah, that's more fun, I think, when there's less red tape.
Pretty much, and that's the thing, is just like, let's just make this good, and like I'm gonna work on it until I'm happy with it. It's gonna take me about this much time, so factoring in how much I want to get paid per day, that's gonna cost me this much time. Good to you, good to me. All right, cool, let's do it.
Nice.
And I need to get better about that, but nah.
Do you have like pretty strict work hours every day, or are you sort of just a workaholic who works all the time?
Yeah, probably more the latter, even though like I would try to do more of the former, but it's just, I think that's just the music industry though, and especially working with so many clients where, you know, a lot of them are Europe, and sometimes like someone's working out of the office in Japan or something, or, you know, someone in the Sydney office needs to be on the call, where it's like, I can't just say I'm here from 9 to 6. It's just, you know, okay, we have to have this meeting, or, you know, something comes up and then I got to jump on a call at like fucking 2 a.m. But yeah, I try to do that, and I'm trying to get more of a better work-life balance, because I'm trying to get more and more away from these things and sort of build it back into the idea of just like bake the pie and sell the pieces. Because I don't know, I'm getting pretty tired of working with so many different companies and doing all these things, and I backed off a lot of the clients just to like the companies I really, really enjoy working with and doing the things I really want to do. But now it's like, I kind of just want to get back to releasing more of my own original music and writing more of my own original music and putting things on Spotify and, you know, doing that kind of stuff, just because, like, conceited as it is, it's just gotten to the point where it's like, well, what do I want to do? You know, I've already worked with like every company I could ever want to work with, and like all the dumb projects, I'm like, that would be crazy. I've like been there, done that. So it's kind of like, I kind of just want to go do my own thing for at least, I don't know, a little while.
What are you finding as the sort of thing that you found to be fun out of all the things that you want to continue doing?
I really like building the decent sampler instruments and doing like multi-sample libraries like that. You know, and that was, I think a lot of that came from doing some stuff on Piano Book before I pulled all my instruments and stuff off there. It was just, that was really fun to have a license to be like, all right, if I could make any library I wanted to make, what would it be? And not just getting commissioned of like, you know, we need lo-fi analog synths, and it needs to be, you know, at least 10 different sources multi-sampled in this format, and da-da-da-da-da. Whereas like the decent sampler stuff, it was like, all right, I'm going to buy a viola, and I don't know how to play viola, but I'm going to sample it. And what does that do? And I get this really unique string library that I get to use, you know, for my own scoring work and things like that. But I get to give it away to other people and hear what they made with it. And that's super cool. So I love doing that. And then, yeah, you know, just like making music. I just want to get more and more back into that, and actually doing stuff that I get to release under my own flagship, and not just like license out, you know, music for other people to put on like a web page or something.
Yeah, I've always thought like releasing stuff under your own name, you may get paid less initially, but over time I think it's a good investment, because eventually once you just have that brand to put stuff under, then there's like no red tape at all. It's like,
well, that's
at any
the nice
time
thing is like
you can
when I've
just
gotten my music used on YouTube videos, that's been a really popular thing for me lately, is like, you know, someone's watched my YouTube channel and like, hi, I make gaming videos, can I use this song? It's like, okay, cool. And then I get a little, you know, ping back every time someone does that, and that's pretty cool.
Wait, how does that work? Like if somebody uses your stuff in a video, and how do you get paid from that?
If it's registered with Content ID, it gets flagged in like the database, and
But that means that they can't monetize that video at all, right?
I don't really understand it, because I see ads on their videos, and I know I get a cut of it, but it's like, I don't think I'm getting all the cut. Because, you know, I've seen some of my tracks get put in like, there was one that was like some K-pop group, and there was like some kind of drama, so it was some like T video on this K-pop thing, and the video got like 800,000 views, and my song was like in the beginning, and it was just under some dialogue, like they were talking about whatever this drama was with some K-pop group. And I know from my own videos, like if I have a video that does 800,000 views, I know how much that's going to make me, and it's like I might get maybe $100 from them using that track.
How much, out of curiosity, how much does an 800,000 video play get?
I think, because it really depends on a lot of different factors, of like what types of ads are served up, what demographic is it getting served to. Because I've done videos where like for 100,000 views, I'll get, you know, $3,000 or $5,000 on like the tippy top end, but on the other end I might do a video that gets 100,000 views that makes $400. So I think it kind of depends on what audience it gets like funneled to, because
like some audiences are worth more, or the ads to pay for certain audiences cost more.
Yeah, I think it's a combination thereof of like who are the people watching this video, and what type of ads are going to be most effective to serve them. And I think it comes down to like, yeah, how competitive is that space?
Right.
So like relative speaking, like that book video I put out that you watched, that one, comparatively is earning significantly more money than like almost any other video I've done, at least in recent memory. Even though it doesn't have a ton of views, if that tracked up and hit 500,000 views, I'd probably be looking at like a $10,000 to $20,000 payday.
Probably because book people give more click through. I know a couple of book people, and they just buy silly amounts of books. I'm like, how? And
that's kind of what I'm thinking. Is like, I think it's the people that watch that are probably into books and home improvement, self improvement, and things like that. So I'm thinking. And I don't know, because like I have my own Google account, and then I have like my Smurf Google account just to like creep my own videos and see like what kind of ad buys are happening and things like that.
Yeah.
Or just to see like, you know, if I search this, where does my video fall in the algorithm for like a generalized user?
Dude, the amount of money in a home improvement video is cracked.
Yeah.
There is so much money in that.
So I think it kind of comes down to those things, but I think if you're getting a video that does 800 to 1 million, I would say bare minimum you're looking at least 10,000, but it really comes down to the niche. Because like I know a couple people who I've worked with on some stuff who do like beauty videos, and one of them, I mean, her CPMs and whatever, I mean, are just fucking unreal. Where it's like she can do a video that gets 5,000 views and make $400. I don't understand it.
Wow, it's got to be click through. They've got to be prioritizing click through.
Yeah, and maybe that has something to do with the fact that like producers are sort of like inherently thieves, because like we steal shit from day one, right? It's like no one has money to buy like hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of software to make music on when they start, so everyone steals shit from day one. And on top of that, like we're all, you know, sampling everything and whatever, so like the theft is in the art form almost as well. So I feel like maybe making videos for producers versus people who buy books or people who buy beauty products or people who own houses and want to improve their shit.
Right, and that's like the stuff I watch on YouTube is like I barely watch music content on YouTube, and the ads I get served are, I'm sure, significantly different than someone who would be watching a music production video, you know. And I think that's also it, where like, you know, the production market, I'm sure the profits are like razor thin, especially for, you know, plug-in companies, like small plug-in companies and whatnot. So the ad buys are probably pretty small because they don't have a ton of money to swoop at marketing. But then, you know, like I said, it's also a surprise every month. So ad buys during holidays, you know, November, December specifically, way up.
So like, your videos that make less during the rest of the year make way more during those months?
If they pop off during that time, but like during that time, I know if I release the right types of videos, I can make a ton of money off AdSense. Which is like something I try to keep in mind, because then it's like, okay, if I do one video that's going to do well, probably in like the ad buys, that means I could finance the idea I really want to do in like, you know, January, February, when it's way low.
Yeah, that's smart. Meta YouTubing.
Yeah, I have a very I have a very distilled process for how I work through like content, but I feel like I've gotten a lot better at being a YouTuber, but I don't know.
Did you listen to the Lex Friedman and Mr. Beast episode of the Lex Friedman podcast?
Mm-mm.
Dude, that guy is on another fucking level. Mr. Beast, like everything he does in his life, like pretty much everything, just is related to YouTube. Like he just thinks about YouTube. Like, how can I get another 100 billion views? Like he's just like, how can I make like one more thing better in every video? He also spends a shit ton on his videos though. Like he just gives away money.
God.
Like it's
I can't even imagine the level of production it takes. But yeah, that was something I heard. I can't remember where that was. It was on some podcast, I think, or maybe in a book somewhere. But it was a quote talking about like earning money. And if you think about, you know, as someone like, let's say, a small business owner, you want to make $100,000 this year. The best way to do that is probably with your time. Like if I spend my time very efficiently and optimize these things, I could make $100,000 this year. But if you want to make $1 million, you can't do that.
Right. You have to be like, how can I make my money?
Way differently and like way bigger with how am I going to make $1 million?
Yeah, you need to invest in things at that point, basically.
And I think that's the sort of the same line of thinking that it requires to do YouTube really well. Of like, you know, how am I going to hit the generalized audience? And if you can do that, then you can, you know, Mr. Beast it to a degree. But then, and you know, like in fairness, Mr. Beast is like the top YouTuber, arguably. So it's like, if you want to do that, you have to go all in with like YouTube is everything I do. And I think that's true of a lot of creative fields. Like, you know, if you want to be known for like your music and your touring and whatever, you have to just play it a bazillion shows and be super broke for like 10 years until it finally starts to pay off.
Pretty much, yeah. You need to just be like having a crazy music release schedule and a crazy touring schedule always. Right. Pretty much, yeah. It's a lot of work.
Yeah, I think YouTube's kind of the same way, where it's like if you really want to do YouTube super well, you have to really think it through, and you have to think the 100,000 versus the million question.
Yeah, that makes sense. Well, hey man, we're probably going to get back to editing this series. I appreciate you coming on though. It was nice chatting with you. And yeah, of course. And is there anything you want to plug before we leave?
Let's see. I've got my weird new art film thingy I just put out today that flopped in the algorithm, so if you want to go look at that, you can. I went across the country with Ben Jordan for a NAMM trip, and we filmed a bunch of weird locations, so I put that out, and that was a super fun project. And then yeah, you can find me on my YouTube channel, maybe.
All right, cool, man. Well, thanks again.